The Garfield movie, directed by Mark Hindall, stars Chris Pratt, Samuel L. Jackson, Nicholas Hoult, among many others. Garfield, the world-famous Monday-hating, lasagna-loving indoor cat, is about to have a wild outdoor adventure. After an unexpected reunion with his long-lost father, Garfield and Odie are forced from their perfectly pampered lives into joining Garfield's father, Vic, in a high-stakes heist. I've always been somewhat a fan of the Garfield brand. I wouldn't be an absolute die-hard mega fan, but I have an understanding of their comics. I've seen some show adaptations, and obviously I've seen the 2 live-action CGI hybrid movies with Bill Murray voicing the titular cat. My excitement for this movie quickly dwindled as the trailer released and I had the information that Garfield will be voiced by none other than Chris Pratt. Since Hollywood and big studios basically constantly shaft voice actors, good old Chris Pratt is constantly getting cast to voice various animated characters now. First it was Mario, and now here we have it again with Garfield. Not only this, however, but the entire cast is basically filled to the brim with celebrity voices, which obviously is nothing new with animated movies. Let's talk about these performances first, starting obviously with Chris Pratt. Along with getting cast as voices all the time, he does what he does all the time and pretty much phones in his entire performance. He doesn't try to change or exaggerate his voice at all because you need to have that recognizability. I can't believe I'm asking for the days of Bill Murray to come back, because half the time you're watching his movie, you're hearing the line readings of a man who both simultaneously wants to die and is waiting for his paycheck. I just get nothing from Chris Pratt. His performance is so hollow and devoid of any charm. When you watch Garfield, there's a sense that the character has some charisma, and Chris Pratt doesn't do a good job of conveying that. It sounds more like an overconfident ego stroke for him. He wasn't funny either, and this is probably more so down to the script having its jokes basically not land at all. Surprisingly enough, despite clearly taking this movie for a paycheck, I actually thought Samuel L. Jackson did a good job of playing Garfield's father, Vic. He just sounds like he's having so much fun in the recording booth, and it never sounds half-assed, which is pretty refreshing and definitely makes the movie more bearable hearing him put effort into his performance. There isn't too much to his character. They basically do a subversion of him. You think he's gonna act one way when he's first introduced, and then we learn more about him, and he's not like this at all. Other than the brief backstory they give his character, there isn't much to him. Hannah Waddingham is back already on the big screen playing another villain. Her character is fine. They give her a grounded motive for why she's evil. She's not some cat that wants to take over the world or anything. One thing I was surprised by, and this isn't to do with her performance per se, but for context, I'm one of these idiots that will usually stay during credits, not in hopes to see an after credits scene. My brain hasn't rotted that bad from Marvel. However, for all that's curious, yes, there is an after credits scene in this movie. But basically what happens is, during the credits they play a song that's sung by Waddingham's character. During the song, at the side of the screen, what we see are drawings and essentially a storyboard for a musical number. So what I think must have happened during production was they planned to put this song in the movie, but eventually they decided against it. But because they, 1, already had the song recorded, and 2, had a storyboard drawn out for it, they decided to shoehorn it in during the credits. It was kind of embarrassing to see. Vin Rames makes an appearance, and while he plays a semi-important role in the movie, at the end of the day, he's just here as nothing but a reference, which I'll get into in a bit. Snoop Dogg makes an appearance. Again, another paycheck job. I guess his movie The Underdogs didn't go over well on Amazon. You all remember that, right? It only came out this year. The only reason he has a single scene in this movie is because they got him to do the song for the movie. The song in itself is okay, it's tolerable, it's not god-awful or anything, it's just fine. The story for this movie isn't very good. It's not written well, it's not clever, but it's not supposed to be. It's a kids movie after all, and you can tell that's the attitude they had going into it. The beginning essentially tries to emotionally manipulate you by shoving baby Garfield in your face. Guys, Baby Yoda was popular. We need to have a baby version of every iconic character in order for something to do well now. There's a moment in the movie where we find out more about Samuel L. Jackson's character, and when something was revealed, I remember thinking to myself how it was written pretty badly. Like, it was a really stupid excuse for what happens in this scene. Obviously, I can't say much about it as I don't want to give away any spoilers. It follows a lot of things that we've seen in other animated movies before, and it's executed about as much as you can imagine. I will say I thought the animation in this movie was really pleasing to look at. They put a lot of effort into it. The way characters move is very fluid. It reminds me of that type of squash and squish animation. They did a good job at bringing these exaggerated expressions that the Garfield comics are known for into the animation. It almost feels like it's doing this blend of 2D and 3D without leaning too much into the 2D aspect. There's lots of nice nods to the source material. There's basically a segment of the movie that looks like it's imitating the Garfield comics, which was cool to see. I didn't think they would add that into the movie going into this. Naturally, with this movie being made by Sony, they couldn't help themselves and throw in an abundance of product placement. One near the beginning of this movie I thought was pretty fucking weird was they advertise a bunch of dating apps like Bumble and Tinder, and they explicitly say you should spend a lot of money on their premium options. I thought it was such a weird thing to add in. I know it's obviously in there as a joke for the parents, except it's not a joke, it is quite literally written as an ad. I wasn't eagle-eyed enough to see any Sony specific product placement, but other things like Netflix, Olive Garden and Walmart are in the movie as well. I understand this is a common thing in movies, but whenever I see it, not only is it super annoying and in your face, it's just so disappointing as well. There's a lot of reference humor in the movie too. I say humor lightly as it's quite literally just references. Ving Rhames, like I said, is cast in this movie solely because the plot of this movie is the fact that it's a heist movie. Ving Rhames was in the Mission Impossible franchise, a franchise known for having heists in it. Wow, the people in the corporate board meetings must have been so proud of themselves. There's a really out of nowhere Top Gun reference, and I think they only put it in because Top Gun is popular again thanks to the incredible Top Gun Maverick. Seeing stuff like this again is common, but it's also just annoying at the same time. For some reason, there's a possible Fargo reference in this movie. There's a character who has the same voice and accent to Frances McDormand's character in that movie, and I was honestly waiting to see her name show up in the credits, but no, it was just someone doing an impression. Overall, this is a pretty standard animated movie. It's very corporate, which going into it I kind of expected from Sony. This was never going to be the Spider-Verse of Garfield movies. I do however wish more things had effort put into it besides the animation, because again, I will repeat, my eyes liked to look at this movie. It's very vibrant and colorful, it's very expressive and just fun to look at, but that's about it. It's not an incredibly annoying kids movie. It's another very sterile and safe one, and it's probably gonna make a shit ton of money, who knows. I'm giving the Garfield movie 2.5 stars. Its story is really half-baked, its humor falls flat a lot of the time. I never laughed at a single joke. It has a weird mix of voice cast fronted by Chris Pratt doing a half-assed job, but because this is what people are settling for, I can't wait to see him get cast as a character like fucking Popeye or some shit. It's not incredibly brain-rotting for kids. I know they'll enjoy it a lot more than I will. A lot of my problems essentially boils down to this movie not being for me, and that's okay. However, I would suggest skipping it and wait for it to come on streaming, I guess.